everyone, and welcome to this first episode of a new series that we're inaugurating called Software Package Deconstruction, Assessing Risks to Your Software Supply Chain. We decided to launch this educational offering because, according to Forrester, software supply chain hacks were the leading source of external breaches in 2022. And many of the open source repositories where those attacks originated have become minefields of hidden risks. So understanding all the elements of risk inherent in these packages requires a comprehensive threat and risk analysis that's more MRI than X-ray. So in each episode, we'll deconstruct a software package and dive deep into its risk profile. We're thrilled that you're joining us to learn about different packages and their unique attack vectors. And we hope that in some small way, we can enable your security team to stay one step ahead of malicious actors. The man who will be deconstructing these software packages for you is Tim Stahl, a seasoned security professional with almost 20 years of experience in information security, with additional experience in information technology related to both the engineering and administration of enterprise networks. Tim has secured and defended networks across .mil, .gov, and .com enterprise domains, and his expertise includes the tracking of both APT and criminal groups, threat intelligence, threat hunting, data analysis, OSINT research, DevOps, and SIM engineering. Okay, let's dive in. Many of you are no doubt aware of the attack on 3CX recently, which compromised their desktop app that's used by 600,000 organizations and 12 million individual users worldwide. It appeared to us, from our analysis, that 3CX missed signs that its client had been tampered with before it pushed its update out to customers. And had those signs not been missed, a closer analysis of the software release could have led to discovery of the breach and any malicious code additions prior to distribution. So to further explore what happened and how it might have been prevented, I'm going to turn things over to Tim Stahl, who will guide us on a deeper dive into deconstructing the 3CX hack. And Tim, take it away.
All right, let me open up the screen.
While Tim is bringing that up, I just want to mention that if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post that in the chat, and we'll try and answer those live.
I'm not finding the right screen. Here we go. All right, we seeing?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, everyone, thanks for joining. Like Guy said, this is going to be educational. So we're just going to talk through this series. We're going to talk about, how to do this stuff, what these packages look like, and from a risk perspective, if you're a software consumer, what can you do to validate these packages, to review these things, to do an assessment before you do a release, and start to protect your enterprise that way, start to preempt some of these attacks. We see a lot of patterns doing this. I worked with a lot of interesting data sets in my career. This is right up there. This is top 2 or 3. It's really interesting to peek behind the curtain and see what these packages look like in real life. So there's a series of packages that we have from 3CX. So that's, oldest to newest, right? The newest one's on the top. So if you're walking through this and this is, something you're doing, your TPRM use case, or, you're checking your software before you push out these releases, this is what you'll do. You sort of walk through this as a series. You'll do these every time. And just like any other tool, the idea is to create that baseline, to understand what normal looks like, so that when something is out of place, it stands out to you. You can do a lot of this stuff via automation, but nothing beats a human taking a look at the reports, or analyzing these things to recognize some of those patterns. So as we can see, we have an overview here of all these different samples. So this sample, right, 1811 was the last clean sample they had out. All right, so, and we can see the number of issues that we see here. Now, this is just this historical view. So if you're doing this every time, this helps you notice when something changes. some of these, this is a desktop agent. It's a small package. So there aren't a huge number of changes from version to version, right? When you go from major version to major version, it gets different. Larger packages have more changes, but still you get that baseline. So if we open this, we can see pretty clearly here that something changed between this version and this version, right? So immediately, something changed and there's something worth digging into. So let's look at the overview here. And this is a diff, right? So these diff reports are important. No matter what tool you're using, if you have SBOMs or whatever, uh, you want to narrow the focus on each release to just the things that matter. And that's where diffing these things matter. So, if you have an SBOM and you're diffing the two SBOMs, you want to focus on the things that change from one release to the next, because that's the ones you want to investigate. Those are where your issues may show up. It makes this a lot easier. It streamlines the process and makes this repeatable. And you can cover a lot of ground with this. So it doesn't take that much work.
Hey,
So
Tim, I'm curious. When you're getting started with a new package, are there ways to speed up the analysis, or do you have to review all the information available to start creating a baseline? Like, how does that scale?
good. It's a really good question, actually. So there are a couple of things you can do, right? In the end, this is analysis, so it's all about context. The more context you have, the better. Now, from this perspective, from a software consumer perspective, it's a black box to you. The baseline sort of helps do that. The diffs help you narrow down the focus. But yeah, when you're starting out, it is a lot to take in. It seems like an overwhelming thing. There's ways you can narrow that down. So a simple trick would be whatever the first package you're going to start your program with, you can always go back and find the previous package or two previous releases, right? Usually you can find those online, or you can ask your vendor for that. If you're, just deploying a new type of software, you can ask for those. That way you have a couple of diffs to look at. Another good method for this part and for every release is the release notes. So in 3CX, right, every vendor will have these release notes, and they'll tell you what happened between one release and the next. So these will help guide you. So now you're looking at just the things that changed, and this should be a roadmap to explain to you why those things changed. And this is great context for you, because now you can say, does this align to the changes that I'm seeing? And if your tool does behaviors, then that's even better. Static analysis is even better. But that makes a nice roadmap. So you use every tool available to you to get that context, and those two are really, really valuable. Right, go backwards and get a couple of diffs, and then use the release notes as a map, and that's how you'll build that baseline and understand what you expect from release to release. So again, here, this is the diff between the version. This is the good version, the last good version, and then this is the first version that showed up tampering, and you can see that just the one thing changed, right? So we have this one tampering. As a software consumer, this is a bigger deal, right? Producers, what's going in your pipeline. You have all these meetings, what's being fixed and what's changed. You have that context. From this side, this is just tampering, right? You have to assume that that's bad. So let's take a look at this report and we'll see what we have here. So again, there's a couple issues, but like we saw in that previous, it's pretty steady from release to release. And whatever your tool is, just like any other analysis tool, you create that baseline through the policies that you have set, right? If you've just used SBOMs, then you have that diff to see what was added. But if you're doing stack analysis, you're doing, you have this deeper dive into these packages, that helps a ton, right? So you're creating that baseline, because the whole thing is narrowing your focus. So a lot of these software supply chain tools are geared towards producers. There'll be a lot of detections in here that won't matter to you as a consumer, like debug files. There's a lot of things that producers won't want in their package. They want to be warned of, but as a consumer, you don't really care about those things. They have no impact to you. They don't affect the security of your network. So why even bother seeing them? So I actually have two up here. So our base for the same package, our base policy set is geared towards software producers. And you can see here, we have 60 issues across a bunch of things, but this is tuned towards consumers. I've tuned this policy down. We made a lot of adjustments, and we've cut that down to 33 issues. So we almost cut that in half. So again, you're just getting rid of the noise and focusing on the things that you can actually take action on or that matter to you. So we knew there's an issue. Let's go down here and look at the issues. And we know there was a tampering, digital signature issue. And here we see this is what failed. We have this set to fail because as a consumer, any tampering should be a huge red flag to you, right? So there's one file, and let's look at the information, some information about that, but let's go see what the file is. And it's D3 decompiler. In hindsight being 2020, we know this is, one of the files that are part of the attack. But again, we'll pretend like we don't know that, right? So we hit a detection. We see that this is, the integrity issue. We also can see over here where this came from. And this will be in your SBOM or whatever tool you're using. So now this is a Microsoft DLL, right? Not uncommon. You see a lot of third-party packages. I think, most of the software out there is built off of third-party packages and open source stuff. But when you're using that, the whole point of adding those is that you don't have to recreate that code. You don't have to build from scratch. It also means those things don't get tampered with. So to see a third-party element get tampered with, at this point, I wouldn't push this package out. This is where I go back to the vendor and say, hey, what's going on? Because again, this is in the same package over and over again. It's part of your baseline. And all of a sudden in this release, there was tampering. So this should be enough to tell you, I don't want to go any further. We need to do some digging. So we'll keep on going though. And we'll pull the thread a little bit further. So let's go. So, and again, this is just the differential report. This is the changes between one version and another. You can do this, whatever your tool is, you can do this via script or some other things. But we can see that there's only a handful of files that changed, right? 115. And again, we see the issues that are here. Partially signed content, again, same file. But we'll go on here, and this is, the output of our diff. And however you do this, this is where you want to look for your needles, right? So the more you can do to narrow that funnel down to this, then it makes this easier. That makes it repeatable, and you can cover a lot of ground with, just one analyst. It's also nice that you don't need to be a reverse engineer to do this kind of thing. So we'll narrow this focus even further. So these are the 115 files that changed, but we just want to see, these are all of the changes. This is added, removed, whatever. We don't want to see all that. We just want to see the files that changed. So that drops us down to 70. Again, a more manageable number. You can skim through this to get a sense. Right, this is a JavaScript program, so all these JavaScript files change. Electron is the name of the package itself or the framework they're using. So again, these file paths that show you where this stuff is going to get installed help tell that story. It's just more context for you. If it's a larger build and there's a lot of changes, if you have hundreds of changes to dig through, then that helps you group them into sections and understand where these things are happening. And then you can map that to the change log. So for here, we'll just look for files that changed, but also just the ones that had behavior changes. So that narrows it down even further. All right, so now we're down 20. So now this is really manageable. And we see the decompiler DLL we already know is bad. It's in here. So you see a lot of JavaScript, which again is part of this baseline we expect to see. But we also see another DLL here, FFmpeg. Now, from experience from doing this, I know this is a third-party tool. Right? If you've done anything, video editing or any kind of video stuff, especially on Linux, you've probably seen this show up before. So we know this one changed, and here are the behavior changes, right? So we know that it changed, the hash changed. Obviously, there was something changed. There was something tampered with. Over here, we can see the file size. That's also a really good tip. So there was a change, but it wasn't a minor change. Someone didn't change a date stamp or something simple here. There was something added to this, and a significant amount of code was added to this piece, right? So again, another red flag. It's just every piece of context you can get is helpful. So we know we have a serious issue with this file, but we also have this other DLL. And that's, looking at these 19 files, that's the only other DLL. So that would be where I would start. So let me take a look at that and let's see what those behaviors look like. And here, the only behavior change is now this points to the other file that we also know is bad. So in just a handful of steps, we have enough information to know that this shouldn't go out. Right. And these are things that you can repeat, you can do on your own, and you can cover a lot of ground because it is this quick usually. So now we have two files that we know are suspicious. Again, from reading reports, we know that these are the two files that are part of this attack. And you have enough information to stop this and not push this out. Right? If this is auto update, then maybe whatever your mitigation is, you're going to kick that off. You want to kick off an investigation, start seeing who downloaded this, where it's at, that kind of stuff, and then report to the vendor. But it's from the outside looking in, if all the marketing and all the noise that's out there about this, we want to show you these things and show you how simple this can be, that you can do this on your own, that you don't need a ton of expertise. You don't need a whole new team of people. This is achievable. Um, so all you need to do is just to grab some tools and get started. So that is probably the simplest and easiest APT investigation you will ever see. And that's what it looks like. Right? This is a real world attack. It only took a few minutes to dig through and find the results and make that determination for you that this isn't safe to deploy on your network. So that concludes the demo. It was pretty short and straightforward, but that's sort of the point is, don't be afraid to try this, get into this. If you see it coming, the mandates are coming for S-bombs, this is going to come down. And if the responsibility lands to a team that's not really that technical, GRC. I've seen other places, we talk to these people about this and, there's a lot of confusion about what's available, what you can do. And this is part of this program. I just want to show you what it looks like when you do this stuff. And this is accessible. So Guy, I think that was all I had for the demo.
Okay, very good. Well, while you were doing that, we had a couple questions come in. I think you can probably see it there on your Q&A at the bottom, but let me just go ahead and ask.
Well,
I'm going to start with the second one. It will be helpful if there was a high-level overview or brief of what the ReversingLabs solution is or what problems it is solving.
Yeah, and we do have that type of content, right? Again, that's not really the focus of these demos. This is more education, but sure, we do have that. And as you can see, it's a fairly rich tool. You can use it for producers or consumers. There's a lot of information here that we didn't cover because it wasn't relevant to this investigation. But yeah, we do have that information. We can shoot that on to you. And if you have more questions, we can cover those in more detail. Right. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end here. Guy's going to cover some stuff you can do here to get some hands on.
Yeah, but to the person who asked the question, in short, we are a software supply chain security tool that can quickly analyze tampering and differentials and behavior and the kinds of things that Tim showed with the 3CX hack. So back to the first question from the same person. So what we are seeing is ReversingLabs S-bomb analysis tool, where you upload the 3CX software type of vendor packages. Is ReversingLabs doing the S-bomb analysis?
That's a lot of terms that may be a little confusing. This tool is more than S-bomb, right? So we do have an S-bomb right here. We can show you. So in this package, this is your S-bomb. This is, a little more detailed than you may get in other tools because it is static analysis. We do a lot of tagging for behaviors. We show the networking activity, right? There's a lot of stuff that we do on top of that. It's because in the end, it's all about context, right? The more context you have, the more things you can dig into to tell if you have problems, the more chance you have of catching them. So, these are in here, the CVs are in here. So it's a little more than S-bomb analysis. But, for the scope of this demonstration, we were just talking about the differential reports. So I hope that answered the question. And again, you can ask follow-up questions and we can go over this in more detail. I do see there's another question in here.
Yeah. Is this something that a junior or someone new to the industry employees can do? Do you really need 20 years of expertise to make it this quick?
No, again, it's all about tooling and context. But you don't have this tool. Maybe you're doing S-bombs, right? If you're just starting out, maybe you have a simpler report, right? You just want to do the S-bomb. And the diff is really the secret here. Between the diff and the change log, you should have enough context to dig through this and at least say, hey, this is something I need to escalate to a security team. Whereas I don't know enough, right? And you may not. The people using this generally don't tend to be as technical, right? If you're not a developer, then you're starting this fresh. But if you just focus on what changed from release to release and compare that to the change logs, you can have an impact. You can see this stuff, right? And the tool has more depth. Whatever tool you're using, then you can get further. But again, with this tool, we do a lot of tagging. We give you the behaviors, so you can tell, what's going on. Evasion, right? And you map these again to the purpose of the tool, what you expect to see, or in a diff between version to version. Do the behaviors that you see in here map to the change log? Do they map to what you expect? And do they line up with what you expect this tool to be doing? Right. So if it's a developer tool, or if it's a tool that works with hardware, then you know it's going to map, attached devices. It's going to have to do a lot of low level OS stuff and make connections to low level DLLs. That's expected, right? If it's accounting software and it all of a sudden you see a behavior where it can record the screen, capture your microphone, maybe that's sketchy. So yeah, no, with the context of the tool, the change logs and this information, you can have an impact. You don't need a lot of specialized education. You don't need a special team to do this.
All right.
No,
Thank you. Go ahead.
that was good. Those are good questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Tim. Okay, let me get back to my screen here, and that should be loading right now. Okay, on our next episode of Software Package Deconstruction, we're going to take a look at a pair of open source tools, Tabby, a terminal emulator package, and Notepad++, a source code editor for Microsoft Windows. Open source tools like these are used every day and tend to be an overlooked link in the software supply chain. So performing third-party risk management, TPRM analysis on these tools is crucial, as we saw with Log4j. The good news is that assessing that risk with a focus on behaviors and capabilities can be done friction-free with minimal effort. And we're going to deconstruct both those software packages with that focus in mind on our next episode, Thursday, May 25th. We hope you'll join us. And by the way, for those of you interested in analyzing your own software supply chain security profile, we've got a 14-day free trial available to you of the same software that Tim just used to analyze 3CX. And it's available at the link that's in everybody's chat right now. There's no credit card required or software to install. Just create an account and you'll get 14 days of free access to a full-blown version of our software supply chain security platform. You can use it to analyze malware and code tampering embedded in your software components, or generate an SBOM listing all open source and third-party packages and software you're using, or leverage the platform to contextualize and prioritize alerts and threats in your software supply chain. Again, there's no charge, so please take advantage of this risk-free trial. And that concludes this episode of Software Package Deconstruction. Thank you all again for attending. Please be on the lookout for announcements about future episodes from Reversing Labs. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, as well as a great rest of the week. And remember, broaden your view of software risk by securing your entire software supply chain.